Hey everybody, it's John Wheatcroft here with my Sunday Q&A. We're up to number 25. I hope the second lockdown is not affecting you too dramatically and you're managing to stay inspired and keep making music a part of your life. We've got some really interesting questions this week, so thanks very much for all the support. I had loads of views last week, which was great. It's really positive. So I hope you can take something positive in these quite uncertain and troubling times. But so today I'm going to play a request, actually. I had a request from Kevin to play some blues. So this is, it's kind of blues, jazz blues type thing. And it ties in with some of the stuff I've been doing this week for Guitar Techniques. I've been writing a thing for them, sort of a monthly column started up again about the connection between blues and jazz players, and how there are some players that are sort of on the spectrum of you would call them like blues players with a jazzy edge, and you'd include in that, you know, Larry Carlton and Robin Ford and Josh Smith and all those guys. And then we've got jazz players with a bluesy edge, so you'd include Kenny Burrell, Grant Green, and even guys like George Benson, you know, would go in that. So I've been listening to a lot of them this week, particularly Grant Green and Josh Smith, those two players. So this is my sort of homage to that particular style where it's bluesy, predominantly sort of blues-based playing I'm going to attempt to play today, but with some jazzy kind of phrasing going on as well. So I'm going to play the tune Killer Joe, which is Benny Golson's tune, and it's very, you know, dominant 7-based. It's got some changes in the B section, but I'm going to approach it from the perspective of kind of like B.B. King, if you like, but with maybe a few kind of jazz lines thrown in for good measure. So there's not going to be anything fast. That's my aim, is to not play anything fast particularly, and try and state some melodic ideas that I can develop. So with the questions this week, it ties into one of the questions actually about phrasing that I got. So Alan sent me a question about phrasing. So I'm going to use some of the kind of things that you might play in this particular style to demonstrate that. I'm also going to look at I played Donna last week, and Charlie put in a request for me to do a kind of a breakdown of what I played. So I'm going to try and simplify how you might play over some of those bebop changes. That's something that we're going to do today. I'm also going to do a chord melody thing based upon what we call, or what I call, breakout melodies from chord shapes. So there's plenty of stuff to get stuck into this week. I hope you enjoy the tune. I'll see you on the other side of it. Take care. See you in a little moment. I hope you enjoyed that tune. It was great fun to play, although I did have some technical gremlins along the way. So the first time I got to about 10 seconds towards the end of what felt like a really good take, and then the track just stopped for no apparent reason. That was the first one. Then I thought, okay, I'll do it again. Recorded it again, and then realised I'd pressed the mute button on the front of my microphone, so I had silence effectively. So that's the third complete take. And of course what ends up happening is your mind starts playing tricks with you, and you start thinking, well, the first one was maybe a bit better, and this is as good as the second one. So I'm going to leave it as it is. Sometimes as well, you know, you're often not best placed to judge your own work. I'm sure you've experienced that. I have, where I've done certain gigs where I've not felt like I played that well, and someone in the audience will say very complimentary things. And then other times when you feel like you're really knocking it out of the park, and it falls flat to the audience. So I've come to the conclusion that sometimes, you know, my opinion is maybe you're a little bit too connected to it to be objective. At least just after you've played something, that's definitely something worthwhile bearing in mind. I'm sure you may have experienced that too. I have, where I've recorded something and I think that there's a problem or I'm not so happy with it, and then I come back to it a couple of days later, I think, what was I worrying about? Because there's a natural tendency when listening to something for the first time to sort of pick it apart and be looking for the negative aspects of it rather than appreciating the positive. But you know, that's a beside anyway. But So I hope you enjoyed that tune. That was Killer Joe. And as I say, I tried to approach it in a kind of a bluesy way, using a lot of thematic development. And that's one of the first things that I want to talk about today. So I had this question from Alan about phrasing. So I'm going to show you kind of something I've been sharing with some students in the unis that I teach at this week, or in the last couple of weeks, about taking a musical idea and delivering it at different points within the bar. So I'll use a kind of similar groove to what we've just played, or what you've just heard, should I say. So we're going to play something in C7, you know. I'm going to choose 120 beats per minute, so I've got my click. So I'm just going to do this with a click. Okay, so our groove will be that kind of groove. Okay, so over that I'm going to establish a phrase, right? So a musical phrase. So keep it really simple, and the phrase is going to be just coming from C minor pentatonic scale, and that's obviously a big part of blues phrasing, and I try to use a lot of it over that particular tune. Although there's a little bit of F melodic minor there, you might have noticed against this C7 to B flat 7. I'm thinking of it as being like it's going from C7 to B flat Lydian flat 7, but that's another topic perhaps. I'm going to keep this simple. So this would work over just a regular, 12 bar blues in the key of C. So our phrase, there's a little bit of a swing to this just to go with the backing that you've just heard. Of course you could play it straight. So I'm going to play this now on beat 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. Here's the groove. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's when you position that phrase on beat 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. And it also ends on beat 1. It's a whole bar long. Okay, so that was kind of an unintentional bonus, if you like. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 notes long. So in swing eighth note, it's 9 notes long, and that means it's going to last the entire bar. So in this instance, we're starting on beat 1, and we're also going to end on beat 1. Okay, so that's the first phrase. So what we're going to do with this now is we're going to move it to different points in the bar to create variations. So on beat 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Feels different. 1. That's on beat 2 now. 1, 3, 4. Okay, so instead of it going 2, 3, 4, now it starts and ends on beat 2. It's good if you can do that as well. Sing it. Don't rely upon your fingers to tell you what it sounds like, if that makes sense. Okay, then if you do it on beat 3, 1, 2, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 2. So it feels different again. That's on beat 3. It's kind of similar to beat 1 because they've got a similar feel. The 1 and 3 feel like the strong points in the bar. Okay. Then we can start on beat 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You got it? So, again, so what we're doing there, we're taking a musical phrase. 2, 3, 4, 1. 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, so you're putting it on beat 1, putting it on beat 2, putting it on beat 3, putting it on beat 4. So you can do this with anything. I'm just using that particular phrase as just a teaching device, really. So you can do that with any phrase. It's given us in this instance 4 different variations. Now, of course, with this you could position it on the and of each beat. You could actually put it in the middle if we'd seen it like triplets, but for now we'll keep things sort of straightforward. It's given us 8 locations, 8 notes, 8 possible locations. So we're just going to do it on a couple of these ands for now, so you get the feeling for it. And in your practice, it'd be good if you move it through them all subsequently. So first things first, you want to make sure that you can actually access those points in the bar. So before you even try playing a musical phrase, we want to make sure that we can comfortably go 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and. Remember, these are swing 8s. 1 and 2, 3, or kind of like a shuffle thing. So there's sort of a difference between swing and shuffle, but again, that's a topic for another day. We're seeing this like it's based on triplets, 1 and 2, or 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 and 1. So we're going up 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 4, 1, 2 and 4, 1, 2 and 4, 1, 2 and 1, 2 and then the end of 3. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 3 and 4. Then the end of 4. 2, 3, 4 and 2, 3, 4 and 2, 3, 4 and 2, 3, 4 and. Okay. So let's try and play our phrase now in those locations. So on beat 1, it sounds like 3, 4. I'll give you a bar of rhythm. 3, 4, 1, 2, or 2 bars of rhythm. So it ends up being a 4-bar phrase. On the and of 1 goes 3, 4, 1. 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. So different that feels. 1, I'll do it on the and of 4 now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And again, it ends on the and of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. 1. So it starts and ends in the same place. Okay, so let me slow that down. Right, I'm going to slow that right down. In fact, I'll do it. So that was 120 beats per minute. I'm now going to put it at 80 beats per minute. Okay, so the first phrase, I'll put it on 1. And then I'm going to put it on the and of 1, and then I'll put it on the and of 4, which effectively pulls it forward 1. Right, so I'll pull it forward by an 8th note. And now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to straighten it up, straighten the rhythm up just so it's simpler. So I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 1. 2. Now I'll put it on the and of 1, 4, 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So different that feels. 4 and 1. Back to beat 1. 3, 4, 1. Now on the end of 4. 3, 4 and. 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I strongly suggest that you get really comfortable with these entry and exit points. I couldn't recommend highly enough the educational work by the drummer Rakalam Bob Moses. He's the drummer who plays on Bright Side's Life. That's probably where I first heard him. The album with Pat Metheny. I think Pat Metheny's first sort of major solo record with Jaco Pastorius on bass. The trio with Bob Moses, Jaco and Pat. And he's a phenomenal drummer, and he talks about this idea of each location in the bar's got a certain sensation. Some of them feel like they're forward moving, some of them feel like they're earthward. Yeah, I would really I'd check him out, and don't be put off by the fact that he doesn't play the guitar. Let's be honest, drummers generally know more about rhythm than guitar players. It's the world they live in. And there's a lot you can learn by developing your rhythm. That said, you'll hear this kind of thing, pushing and pulling on the beat, by players like B.B. King, Eric Clapton. They're probably doing it in an intuitive way rather than doing, I'm pretty sure B.B. King hasn't done what we've just did there, take a phrase and play it in every location in the 8th note grid or the swing 8th note grid initially. But intuitively, he just hears music that way. You definitely hear him taking a phrase and pushing and pulling it, rhythmically speaking. He does it when he sings as well. It's what's really startling with B.B. King is the similarity between the rhythmic phrasing when he sings and the rhythmic phrasing when he plays. It's pretty much, you know, one and the same thing. So there's a lot you can learn from these blues guys. You know, I think sometimes you might think, so note-wise it's quite simple and straightforward, but arguably rhythmically it's more sophisticated than you'll hear with a, you know, a bebop player like, you know, Charlie Parker or Jimmy Rainey or all those guys. Amazing though they are, you know, or Pat Martino. You know, often it's like a stream of notes, and it's technically phenomenal and it's musically beautiful and so on. But there's something definitely valid in the fact that in the way that B.B. King floats way over the, you know, the imaginary beat lines, way over the bar lines, and plays a phrase super early and then super late, and manipulates the rhythm much the way that he sings. So that's our first thing for today, moving a phrase rhythmically to every location in the bar. I had a request from Charlie about last week's performance of Donna Lee. If you didn't see it, I played along just to a click with no backing track. And the click was set to 100 beats a minute, but it's clicking on beats 2 and 4, so it's actually 200 beats a minute. And the idea is to try and outline the harmony just with the melodic lines that you play, not relying upon leaning on the chords, not relying upon leaning on a bass player or a backing track or what have you. So I'm going to show you some ways to do this and what the kind of thought process is when playing through fast moving changes, right? Essentially, right, here's my analogy. It's like if you were on a cruise and you got to spend a day in Egypt, say, and you were anywhere near the pyramids, you're probably going to go and check the pyramids out. Or if, you know, for whatever reason, you know, you find yourself in Paris and you've got a couple of hours and you're near the Louvre or whatever, or you're close to, you know, you're close to the Eiffel Tower or you know, Notre Dame or whatever. You know, there's certain places, big landmark areas that you're probably going to want to check out, because you wouldn't want to go to those places and miss out, you know. But if you were then to spend a year or 6 months or whatever in Paris, you've probably seen enough of the Eiffel Tower and you've been to the Louvre a few times, and then you start going down, you know, finding the little off the beaten track cool places, you know, some cool cafes and a great bar, or, you know, sort of amazing restaurants and places where all the cool music is. And that's probably the real Paris, if the truth be told, not the tourist areas. But you'd only do that if you had the time, you know, if you'd been there before, if you're really experienced with it. And that's kind of like the same with chords, right? So if you've got 2 beats on A flat 7, it's probably a good idea to kind of visit the pyramids, you know, meaning you probably want to say the notes that relate to A flat 7, you know, the 3rd, the 7, the 5, you know, the notes that are closely related to that A flat chord, to sort of acknowledge the fact that that's happened. And then it goes someplace else to F7 and it's only there for maybe a bar or whatever. Same deal. You're going to want to know what's in an F7. You're probably going to want to go, well, there's an A flat in the A flat and there's an A in the F7, and you can make music with that. Whereas if I give you 64 bars of F7, if all you do is play A and E flat or what have you, then that's going to be very, very limiting. So that's really where we get into the idea of tension and release, playing upper extensions, playing notes that actually clash against the chord deliberately to give us a sense of movement when you're playing over one chord. But when you're playing over things that are moving as fast as bebop, you don't necessarily have to do that real kind of spelling out the tension. Of course, the more familiar you are, you know, going back to my analogy, you know, if you've been there before and you've been there a bunch of times, then you can maybe skip going to the pyramids or skip going to the, you know, the Eiffel Tower or what have you, and get straight to the things that you maybe think have got more interest, you know. And that's how you might hear bop players, you know, zoning in on upper extensions or zoning in on tensions, the flat 5, you know, the sharp 9, things like that. You know, that's because they're experienced with these changes, you know, and they're going to be brave enough to actually spell out some tension, which ultimately needs to be released. But so how are we going to do this then, or more importantly, how are you going to do this? Well, my first advice to you is to learn small arpeggios, like really, really, really small. Like I'm talking, like maybe just being able to play one note from an arpeggio, but being able to get to it at will. By that, what I mean, so we'll take the opening bars to Donna Lee as our case in point. Right? So if I go A, it goes A flat, and it goes to an F7, and then it goes to B flat, dominant 7, and then it goes to 2-5-1 in A flat. Maybe just as far as that. Right? Okay, so what I want to make sure that I can do is that I can spell that out. So I can go, there's my A flat, and there's an F, And then the next chord is a B flat 7. And I play it in a different octave perhaps, B flat, and then it goes to E flat 7 to A flat, major 7. Okay, so if I can't do this, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no point me doing anything else. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I take it through, I walk through the tune. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the second half, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and so on. So that's the root of each chord. Now I'm deliberately trying to keep it away from the bass because we're not trying to create a bass line here. Although I could think of worse things to do when learning a tune than learning what the bass might play, because that's going to really cement the chord sequence. So that's a good thing to do. Like so, you know, and that's like sort of 2 in the bar with a few little skips here and there. And of course you could make that walk in, which brings in more arpeggio tones. But I don't think that's really what we're talking about here as such, because bass line is usually glued into the tonic. You know what I mean? And you reference the tonic pretty much when the chords change. Of course, there are variations on that. But with a melodic line, you don't have that restriction. And you also don't have that rhythmic restriction of kind of spelling out, you know, being part of the rhythm section and trying to spell out where the chords are changing. So changing like pretty much like in the right place in the bar. When we're playing melodies, we can go really early, we can go really late, we can miss stuff out, we can just stop playing altogether. You know, bass players generally don't do that. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest we do next is we do our thing where we play the roots. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. B flat 7, maybe you say the chord. B flat minor, E flat, A flat, E flat, A flat, D flat major, D flat minor, A flat, F7, B flat 7, B flat 7, B flat minor, E flat 7, A flat. Like so. So that's the chord sequence of this particular tune. So the next thing I might do is add the third in. So this is an arpeggio, albeit a small piece. You know, you don't have to run up and down them like an exercise. So I'll make a little melodic fragment here. So that's going to be my thing. So that's my little rhythm. I'll take that for a little walk around the changes. Okay, now I did something a little bit different there. What I did at that point is I flipped them over because my E flat I had there, so I didn't really want to go higher. So instead of going higher to find the third, you can go lower. So I'll do the same thing with A flat and go. So I've got choices here. I'll go A flat, I'll do it really slow. I might go A flat and the third above. F, and now I might choose to go the third below. So I don't mean the diatonic third, I mean the actual third of the chord, but in the octave lower. So instead of going F to A, I'll go F to A. And the next chord's B flat, maybe I'll go up this one. Then because we've got 2, go down, then I go up. So there's my B flat. E flat, down, perhaps. Is it making sense? Hope this is making sense. So let me do this one more time. So this time I'm going to go, I'll just do ups. F7, B flat, 7, B flat minor, E flat, A flat 7. Okay, and then D flat major, D flat minor. It's an exercise. But if I decorate that, so maybe instead of just going 1, 3, I go 1, 1, 2, 3. put flat 2 on there if you want, you know, it's up to you. So we can flip that round. You could go, or, so that in that case I'm playing the third, and then the root, and then the third, root, and then the third, root, and then kind of do this through the whole tune. 3, root, and so on, you know, so moving it through. We could add the 5 into the equation, you know. And then add the 7. So let's maybe slow down a second there. I'm going to go root 3, 5. Go. And now, of course, you can go the opposite way. B flat, B flat minor, E flat major. And then you have to choose stage, you go straight to an A flat. Well, we're not playing 7s as yet. If you're going to go 2 chords per bar, you might go. Hopefully you hear the changes. And so on, yeah. And on it goes, you know. So that took it through the rest of the sequence there. So when it was 2 chords per bar, I just went root 3, root 3. Okay, so you could also go root 7. Now you could choose to go down or F. So hopefully you can hear the chords there. So there what I did is I'm going the root. So we get again. So each time I'm really figuring out, reinforcing what the harmony's doing, but in such a way that I'm not necessarily playing the full complete arpeggio. So I can maybe go root 3, 7 or root 7, 3. Now go up for the 7. Now 2 chords per bar, I might go. And so on. This is quite a simple way of approaching playing through a tune, and it's got a definite sort of yes or no answer to it. You know, can you play the 4, basically the roots? It's not the most melodic thing in the world. 2, do, do, 5, do, 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 1, 2, 5, 1 to the 4 chord, 4 chord minor, 1, 6, 2, 2, and then put the thirds on them. Okay, so hopefully there you're beginning to hear like the sort of the shape of the tune beginning to, or the shape of the changes beginning to sort of form, if you like. Okay, then we can add the 5. And then move them around. So it's displacing things. Instead of going root 3, 5, went root 3, 5, root 3, 5, root 3, 5. Of course, there's no reason why you couldn't go. And then at the 7. So the next thing would maybe be replace the 5 with the 7. You know. So on. I'm moving through this quickly, but you get the idea. And then you might want to maybe pick any of the notes. You can maybe say, could you play the 9 of each chord, or could you play the 11, or what have you. So the beauty of this is that it's not really leaving it to chance. It's like, can you do it, yes or no? So you can either play the tonic of each chord, to a click, if you like, in time with the chord changes, or you can't, right? And if you can't play the tonic of the chord, it doesn't really make sense to be trying to play anything more complex than that, really, to be fair. So you need to make certain that you're aware of the chord changes. And the beauty of this is, at any point, sort of, if you stall, or you find that you're making repeated mistakes, or your concentration wanes or whatever, you know exactly what you need to work on. It could be the turnaround, it could be the B section, it could be what happens towards the end, or what have you. So it's a really good way of drilling any piece, really, and it's something that I do when I practice. I still continue to do this. Now, another way of doing a similar thing, it's basically the same thing but in a sort of condensed way, is to voice the chords in such a way that you just play the root, the third and the 7. Now, what's going to happen is and on it goes, right? So what happens is the bass line tends to jump around, right? So when we look at chord changes, the bass line will often move around and leap. So it'll go from A flat, and then it goes to F, and then it goes to B flat, and so on. So we see all this motion and things that are bouncing around all over the place. But if we actually look at the treble, or we maybe even use a few things like inversions, we can actually see some cool stuff happening. Like, so for example, there's our A flat major 7. If I just play the 3rd and 7. So maybe I'm going to pause there a second, actually. So it's one thing me saying just play it root 3rd and 7. That might be a point where you need to hit stop and go, okay, can I do that? Can I play root 3/7 voicings? That might be a point that you might need to address. If you can, great, proceed. If not, that's where we need to kind of work. We need to do the work at that point. There's no real talent involved here. This is just putting the work in. So that's an A flat major 7, and that's root, and that's the 7, and that's major 3rd. I could flip it and go root, and there's the 3rd, and there's the 7. Could be that voicing. So if it were A flat 7, it would be root, flat 7, and major 3rd. It would be this, root, 3rd, 7. If it were A flat minor, it would be root, flat 3, sorry, flat 7, flat 3. Root, flat 3, flat 7, like so. Okay, so what I can do now is I can move these voicings. 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 4, B flat 7, B flat minor, E flat, A flat, 2, 5, D flat minor, A flat 7, F7, B flat. Now, what's actually happening here is this. See how close together these chords are? And a lot of these phrases they're connecting together, these notes. With sort of decoration, if you like. So we'll take all the decoration away, sort of take the peacock feathers out, as it were, and we end up with. And you also have some options as well, because I can play that here. No reason why it needs to be those 2 strings as well. It could be any pair of strings, but that sort of suits the way we play chords, I guess. Okay, so that's playing the root, the 3rd, and the 7. In this case, then remove the root. So we find when we do this, we've got these target tones. There's a whole kind of study in connecting these things together. So many jazz phrases do things like. those things together. Third, you know. In fact, if you look at the melody, that's the third of the chord. You know, so it's connecting together these strong points in each of the chord. So that is something that I would also strongly suggest you do. You learn to play the tune with just root 3 and 7 or root 7 and 3. Then there's a few little sneaky subs as well that we can do. So instead of this F7, you can actually go, which looks like a diminished chord, but it's actually F7, first inversion with a flat 9. But it looks like we've gone and raised the root as if you've gone, and loads of lines go. There we go again. So that thing of connecting the 3s and the 7s, or the roots to the 3, or whatever you can find, it happens all over jazz. So particularly when you hear things like in the end of Donnelly where it goes, I don't know if you noticed there, that's C minor, F7, D flat minor, E flat 7, A flat. If I just trace that on one string, right, if I trace that on one string, I've actually got this. Kind of phrases, yeah. You notice that? That's the third, seventh of one chord, becoming the third, becoming the seventh, becoming the third, becoming the seventh. And that happens all over jazz. There are other connections as well. You have like the 5 becomes like the flat 9, becomes the 5, becomes the flat 9. Those kind of ideas as well. That sort of parallel, they're both happening at that point. You've heard that, I guess, if you listen to Charlie Parker for more than a few minutes, you've heard that. So, to recap, we've got the idea of playing through a tune just by playing the root note in the treble strings, then play the root note followed by the third, and that third can be above, or it can be the same note an octave lower. So on through the whole tune. Do it in time as well, so get your click on the go. So can you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And so on, you know. Because if you can't do that, it's not going to get easier when the band's playing. It's going to get harder, isn't it? So then you'd maybe go root to 5 or root 3, 5. Well, why do you need the 3? Why not go root 5? You know, and so on. You start making these little games up, which mean that you can just touch the chords as they go past. So this is the point, and that's what's happening when I'm playing that tune. I'm just touching the chords. Then you start seeing how the 3 of one is close to the 7 of the next and stuff like that. You know, 3s and 7s are super cool. You know, so the same thing. 3 and 7s, you know, as I mentioned before, I'll just play the 3s and 7s, I'll do it in the middle strings, 4. And on it goes, yeah. So I'm hoping that that's going to give you some tips for playing through these tunes. Of course, then we start decorating them and playing little melodies around them. And they become like our phrases, our licks, our kind of, you know, signature ideas that we draw from. But in a way, the beauty of these small arpeggios, and that's what they are, these are small arpeggios, just because they're not played in a long unbroken line doesn't mean it's still not an arpeggio. Any more so than when you play scales, you have to play them in long unbroken lines. You don't, you know, you can miss notes out, you can play them any rhythm you like. The beauty of this is it's sort of alive, it's dynamic. It means we can improvise, connecting them together. So if you said to me now, do that again, what you just played, I couldn't do it. I can't remember what I played. I was connecting them together in a way that was in the moment, you know. And then this is improvising, really, you know, but using the chord tones. Of course, we can expand this to use the upper extensions, but we've got to start somewhere from a place of, you know, solidity. So check out that Bill Evans video. You know, as I say, he talks about keeping things simple, but keeping things sort of honest and true to the harmony, because that way then we've got some place to build. So that's going to be our next thing, is some approaches to playing through, in this instance, Donna Lee, but this could apply to any fast-moving bebop changes. Just got a little bit of time where I can address a question from Simon, which relates to this, actually. I'm going to connect it to this, about chord melody ideas and ways of connecting chords with melody. So I've got this concept that I call breakout chords, which I'm going to share with you. And the concept is that whenever you see a chord shape on the guitar, we don't just see it as a chord shape in and of itself. So if we take our A flat, like we've used for Donna Lee, and maybe go into an F7, go to a B flat. So that's our changes, right? Around this A flat, maybe we can add the 5 or the 6. So A flat major 7, that little shell voicing of root 7 and 3. Around this, I can see melodic potential. So around this, we might say A flat major scale. And then around this, you've got scalar ideas. So it's like in orbit, if you like, around the chord, you have the melodic associated scale. And that's the same for every chord shape. So if I chose to play that there, there's an associated scale. If I chose to play it here, there's an associated scale. If I play it here, there's an associated scale. Here, wherever else that you know your chords. Okay. So, but for now, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to deal with this one, A flat major. Right? Okay. So say that's the voicing that we all know, and we all know that voicing. So a breakout scale means that I can take any note in that voicing and play melodic ideas from that point. So the most obvious one is the root. So I can take that chord and break into single note lines. Then I follow the changes. I'll keep it on A flat though for now. I should be able to go from that. And in that case, I sort of broke back in as well, you know. So I can get back in again. Play simple. Something like that, okay? Now I can take another note. I can take this note on the top of the chord. So if I play that chord, I'm going to break out now on E flat. You can even kind of go break through the chord, and then back in again. You have to choose your fingers for that one, like as in, you know, I would need that really to land on the second finger. So if I went, I have to change the finger in there. Naturally, you'd probably want to go there, but that doesn't support that chord shape. So I have to change the finger in. Okay, and then we pick the third string. And again, pick the right finger in. I can break in and out. Or I could pick This leads us to the potential of actually using the chord shape in and of itself as a melodic vehicle. So if I go A flat major 7 and we go to F7 flat 9 perhaps, to B flat 7, I could go super simple. Does that make sense? That's what I did. I connected. There's that A flat 7, major 7, forgive me. There's an F7 with a flat 9, and there's a B flat 7, the first 3 chords. I could break out from those chords, like so, or I could just play them as a line. Maybe. And so on. So I hope you're seeing the potential here of simplifying our approaches. So just to recap with this breakout chords, what I really mean is we take this chord, in this case A flat major 7, and I see there's now 4 potential entrance and exit points. So I go from the root, I go from this note to 7, or I go from this note to 3rd, from the 5, now of course I'm using this chord. It could be any chord, couldn't it? It doesn't have to be this chord, it doesn't have to be major, it could be minor, dominant, altered, anything you want. So the concept is, anytime you play a chord shape, make certain you can see how each of the notes in that chord shape could lead you to playing melodic ideas that live sort of in orbit or kind of around it, like as if I can see a trace of the scale that fits with that chord as I can see the chord. I'm pretty sure that's what guys like Django were doing, you know. I don't think he necessarily studied lots of scale fingerings, but he could see which notes fit with the chords. So when it goes from one chord to the next, the picture changes. Please keep the suggestions coming. It's really inspiring to me to see that there's so much interest for this Sunday thing, but I can't do it without you. So keep comments and suggestions coming. Any shares are greatly appreciated. It's really, really helpful. Also, if you've got any suggestions for tunes to play, or even just a certain style, you know, I'll give anything a shot. You know, if you think that I can do it justice, please shout out, and I'll see what I can do. Yeah, take care of yourself. Hopefully, lockdown is going to start having an impact, a positive impact on the figures, and we can see a way out of this at some point soon. Until then, or until next week, take care, see you soon, keep practicing.